Hi, I'm Mark Hoffman, the owner, CEO of Larson Packaging Company. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our Toolless rack crates. We have a couple different examples here. This is what we would call an external floater design, where the foam cushioning for vibration and shock protection is on the outside of the crate. And we have another one over here I'll show you in a minute, which is what we call an internal floater design, where it has wood skids, or in this case blocks, for four-way access, and it has the foam on the inside. Let's start with this one here. What's a feature of all of our toolless rack crates is not needing any tools. So with an integrated ramp or a separate ramp, which you could buy separately, a IT rack weighing anywhere from 1,200 up to 4,000 pounds can be wheeled up from the ramp directly into the crate. Now, one thing I should note is that we take all the foam cushion curves and we design the shock mount protection system specifically for the weight and the design of the crate. And all of the other dimensions of these crates can be customized to your needs, whether there's cable management or different types of power management or cooling, different size racks, whether it's a computer or network rack. We design different types of crates in fit and function and sizes for that to work. So once this front board is removed, the rack rolls in, the front board is replaced. In this particular case, there's a foam cap that encases the crate, and then the ramp, in this case, is hinged, just folds up and is closed. You see those supports on the outside of the crate, which sometimes is an issue for shipping, but that's a trade-off that we make. The ramp opens up. You see that it's beveled to fit the floor properly. Metal tip to smooth the transition and protection, and we can either use metal or masonite runners on the ramp. We usually use metal runners or supports on the inside of the crate, which prevents the casters of the rack from breaking through the plywood or causing any other additional issues. These types of crates are designed to be reusable, so they can be used. In most cases, our customers use them 5 times. The other thing that's an interesting feature is we use a special type of high-performance beaded foam. If you call us for a quote, we'd be happy to tell you what it is. But it's a beaded foam that has very small micro bubbles of air. So even with 3,500 or 4,000 pounds of weight in a rack, there's very little compression that happens, or very little creep that happens in this foam. So they can store heavy weights for a long time, and they have a very wide cushion curve. So foam can be used for a wide range of weights and performs very well for both vibration and shock. In addition, we use a beaded foam here on the inside, which is fairly resilient but very supportive. It's also beaded and has micro bubbles inside of it. This is actually a polyethylene foam that has a Class A rating that you could actually put this against automotive finishes. They use a lot in the auto industry. It doesn't scratch or mar or anything like that. It's very long lasting, and we don't need a lot of it, as you can see. So because all of these parts are manufactured to such high precision and tolerances in our factories, you can load an IT rack in. Once it's closed, it's entirely cushioned and encased, and we've had them tested where there are no tools or mounting or anything that needs to secure the rack so that this crate system will perform. In addition, one of the features is you can see that it's not just the foam holding it on the top and the sides, but also there's a rail system or a well on the inside that holds the base of the rack in place. Let me take you over here to the internal floater, and we'll just take the ramp aside for a second. By the way, I should note that on this particular ramp, these angular ramp supports, and there's some handles so it can be handled fairly easily. Again, tucks in, and this is a compact type of package where all the supports on the inside, so there's nothing protruding. Now you can see that this particular crate design is made to encase the rack system, the IT rack, without a lot of movement, a lot of airspace. And they ship very well in the trucks, but what we're also doing is we're starting to put some foam blocking on the outside to make sure that they're easier to secure in the truck. So you might ask, you noticed on this external floater, we have a hinge design for the ramp, and this one isn't. And some of our competitors will actually hinge the ramp to this floater base And that is actually a no-no in the industry, because then there's a fixed point on this cushioning, and the cushioning system will not work properly. So that's why on an internal floater crate design, we generally don't use a hinged ramp. We would have a loose ramp. But here you can see the same type of high-performance foam underneath what we call the floater base, and it's designed for the weight distribution of the rack. I'll just show that one of the things that we do here is these front boards are very easy to put on. It's just a wing nut and a flat washer and a lock washer, and then comes right off. And this has been very successful for us, but if you can hand me that bracket. One thing we've innovated recently is a new bracket to replace this. And this basically just gets screwed into the end of these rails and has a welded bolt on it instead of driving a hanger bolt into the rails. We found that one of the few areas that these crates can fail to some degree is that over time these hanger bolts can loosen up, and so we've beefed it up with this new bracket system that we find is working very well. There are a couple other things that I'd like to point out on the exterior of this crate as well that's important. So first of all, where the cap has some flexibility, we add gussets. And you'll notice this gusset is not just a 45-degree angle. It's actually made to fit properly in the cleats of the crate. So it looks nice, has a consistent nailing pattern that makes it durable and work functionally, and it has a very good form or function. In addition, versus the industry, we've upgraded a lot of our hardware. So whereas many of our competitors will use just drywall screws or use lag screws or even carriage bolts, we've worked with engineers and added some structural fasteners from Simpson Strong Tie. So we have a connector screw and a timber screw or timber screws that work well. So even though these are only about 5/16 of an inch in diameter, they're rated the equivalent of a 5/8 inch lag screw. So they're very strong. They're guaranteed to work. They don't break. They're reusable. They go in and out. And so this whole cap system could be removed for recycling or other purposes, or for changing things out as a customer might want to do. So in addition, they're flush, so they don't get sheared off. They don't break. They go in very easily with tools. You don't need to pre-drill holes for them. They go in very well. And then finally, all these crates have a rear hatch door to make it easier to remove the rack system when it's coming out. So with one person there receiving it on the ramp, one person can push and get it started, and no additional hardware or anything is required, and the cap doesn't need to be removed necessarily to be able to get the crates in and out. So we found that this design is on average 6 times faster to load and unload than a typical crate that requires tools in our industry. I'd like to show you just one other additional innovation that we're starting to roll out now, and that's what we call and we're going to patent this, is a cartridge system to extend the life of these crates. So what we find is our customers would like to use them only 5 times to guarantee that the foam is going to work functionally. Could be used a little longer, but that's what our customers feel comfortable with. And the caps here, this part's called the cap, and the ramps even, generally don't wear out as quickly, so they can last longer. In addition, sometimes our customers configure their rack crates with different size components or different types of componentry, which will have different weights, and so they require a different floater system. So we've developed what we call a cartridge system, where, well, we could just leave it like that maybe, where the entire floater base comes out, again, without tools, although we could put a couple screws in if required, but everything fits precisely and comes in and out. So 2 things can happen. One is this entire cap and ramp could be reused and get an additional 5 uses with a minimal investment, maybe up to half the cost of a new crate, and get 5 additional uses. So for 1.5 times the cost of a crate, you can get 10 uses out of it. The cost per trip would be much lower than the cost of a fully used one-time crate. In addition, if you have racks that have different weight characteristics, we can design different types, and we have designed different types of cartridges and color code them or label them for different types of weights that can then be swapped out depending what it is that you're shipping to your customer. And then it just slides back in. It's secured in the back and secured in the front and the sides. You can see it's solid, doesn't move. And from the Z-axis, the rack is holding it into place with the foam. And so it's very secure and a very unique modification to these crates to extend the life and give them a wider range of flexibility. This is an example of a typical rack crate that we find coming from some of our competitors or maybe other countries. It's a standard design. It has a handle on the cap. The cap is removable. Here you see those lag bolts or lag screws that I was talking about earlier. Sometimes they use a link lock like these fasteners to hold the cap down. By the way, I'll just note that we've discovered because the crate is so square and stiff and holds together, we only need 2 link locks per side to hold everything in and hold all of the weight and prevent any kind of bowing. Typically, many of our competitors would have 3 or 4 link locks, so that's an additional cost savings and additional speed to load and unload. Anyway, so this particular crate may be secure, have the cap secured with lag screws or with link locks. And in order to load the ramp, with the ramp, which I don't have here, or a forklift or whatever, the cap has to be removed, the rack has to be put in, and then brackets, steel brackets usually, that bolt onto the front and rear of the rack are then bolted into the frame or the base of the crate to hold it to the base. So this is an example. This would be 4 different brackets that go in the corners and hold the rack down. Sometimes the rack has flanges that can be bolted directly. Sometimes there's an L bracket that's a little longer that has more bolts that would bolt to the rack and then also bolt to the base. But it requires tools, takes time. Again, this takes 6 times longer to load and unload than our toolless rack crate. In addition, the industry standard is to use a polyethylene foam. It's generally white foam. Lighter weight racks would use a 2-pound foam. That tends to creep under heavier weight, gets dirty, doesn't look nice, it tears easily, versus the higher performance beaded foam that we use. As the rack weight goes up, most industry people will design, and the cushion curves would show that you need to use 4-pound or 6-pound foam, which gets very expensive, especially compared to the alternative that we use. So for heavier weight rack crates, the higher performance foam, the beaded foam, is actually cheaper and easier to use and machines better and glues better than this polyethylene foam, which has larger air bubbles and ultimately compresses. So that's just a little side note. But more grave, I would say, is that many folks use this black 1.7 pound, really it's 1.5 pound recycled polyethylene foam as these bumpers to hold their racks in. And honestly, we've done that in the past, and it's something that looks nice on a new crate. The rack goes in, it looks like it's holding it. It's a very inexpensive solution, and what we've found in testing is it just doesn't work. So one of the tests required on these rack crates is to do a side impact test, and what happens in a side impact test, the base of the rack is secured, or the base of the rack is secured to the base of the crate, hits a side impact, it cantilevers, and this foam, you can see just even with my fingers, compresses very easily. And with hundreds of pounds or 1,500 pounds, it compresses to nothing. And what we've seen in testing of this type of rack crate, the top of the crate actually blows out, breaks the crate, and essentially this doesn't do anything. So that's why we've moved to the beaded foam for precision, and we know that it works because it's past the testing. The other thing that some customers are starting to do is think about sustainability, and the hypothesis there is that corrugated is more sustainable than a wood cap. And at first glance, that might be true, but the base is still going to be the same, which has a lot of foam and wood and potentially metal. This one didn't have metal in it. So that's a lot of cost to use only once versus multiple use crates that we have. And then what happens is, a series of different types of corrugated panels. Like this would be a J panel that gets fastened with another panel, and it could be fastened with coral clips, or it could be strapped together. There's a DST or design style tray that fits over it, holding it together. There may be additional corrugated dunnage holding things together, or foam on top of it, all on top of this rack. And this is an empty rack right here, but imagine if it weighs 1,500 pounds and it's in this base with a corrugated cap with some straps holding it down. It might be nice. That's probably okay shipping for a refrigerator, going to someone's house, but many of us have gotten appliances that have been damaged. So unless your supply chain is really handling that well, it's it's not necessarily the most robust solution, and it's a one-way solution because the corrugated is not going to last much beyond one use, and perhaps the bases could be reused, but not the corrugated. We've done some math that we'll have on our website, and actually, if you look at the weight involved in this entire crate system with corrugated versus the weight involved of materials, and carbon usage, et cetera, of a full rack crate, but then you think about one-way use 5 times of this one-way solution versus one instance used 5 times of a reusable rack crate. The reusable rack crate is actually more sustainable than using a corrugated solution. And we can talk about the numbers, but we can support either type of design for the customer depending what their goals are. The nice thing about a corrugated solution is you can print on it, you can put other instructions in it. The corrugated itself is very easy to recycle. You take it off and you can throw it in the recycling, whereas the wood becomes a little more cumbersome. But we've tried to make these as easy to disassemble and recycle as possible. One of the other benefits of the corrugated cap design is much easier to ship empty. So whereas these crates are already assembled, you can maybe get anywhere between 10 and 20, 22 in a truckload. With these bases, the bases can be stacked on top of each other and ship in volume. The corrugated can be palletized and ship flat as well. And so for large quantities, it might be easier to ship on its own, other than the other disadvantages that I've spoken to. And then just finally, you're looking at all the tools. You're looking at all the tools I may need to load and unload a rack in my Toolless rack crate. And then over here, this is an example of everything that I need or partially need to load a traditional rack crate or a corrugated. So there are going to be brackets, there are bolts. Oftentimes they're more expensive bolts. There are cap screws, things like that. I'm going to need an impact wrench, different size bits for it. As these ship around, sometimes they get lost. I need to keep extras. The corrugated is going to need to be stretch wrapped at some point, possibly some microfoam, bags as well. And then, I need to have a strapping cart, strapping tools, things like that. So that's one of the reasons, or many of the reasons, why it takes 6 times longer to load a traditional rack crate than one of Larson Packaging Company's Toolless rack crates. In conclusion, I should just point out, I think we've manufactured probably tens of thousands, 15 or 20,000 rack crates right now, all of which have been used 5 times or more each. So, we're looking at almost 100,000 shipments, and we've estimated that our customers have shipped about $40 billion of IT racks in a crate. Each one of the contents of these crates is anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. So it's like putting a Ferrari or something into one of these crates. So we've shipped them with no damage, which is, I think, quite an accomplishment, and no tools, and 6 times faster than traditional crates. But the point is, we feel we know about design and manufacturing rack crates, and we do a good job. We can make a unique custom design for any type of requirement out there. We have capacity to basically do any kind of volume that's required. Rack crates are high value, and they could ship anywhere in the country. So even though we're based in California and San Diego and Milpitas, rack crates are worth shipping out elsewhere. And we've worked with a number of aerospace primes and electronics companies and cloud infrastructure companies throughout the country where we've shipped rack crates, and they've been very happy with them, particularly with the Cartridge idea that we've talked about to handle different weights. So in addition, we have our own corrugated capabilities internally where we can make corrugated cap rack crates. We prefer the reusable type, but we can support our cloud customers with any type of rack crate that they may require or they'd be interested in, or certainly have those conversations about the pros and cons. Again, I'm Mark Hoffman, CEO, owner of Larson Packaging Company. I'd like to thank you for watching our videos and visiting our website. Feel free to peruse more of our website. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments, please call customer service or email us at customerservice@larsonpkg.com. And we look forward to hearing from you and working with you.